Good evening, I'm Margaret Bates. Bill Hayden is tonight celebrating his appointment as Australia's Governor-General Designate. The announcement came from Buckingham Palace early this evening, and at the same time Mr Hayden announced his resignation from the ministry.
In his own words, the boy from South Brisbane has come a long way. Celebrating his new vocation with his wife Dallas, Mr Hayden was also ending 27 years in a stormy and at times emotional political life, but not without its touch of humour.
My next trip overseas, now you'd never believe that I'd be prepared to go overseas again, would you? But I have to go over for consultations with the Queen. And I'm just looking forward to the forms you fill in, and it says occupation, and I'll be able to write unemployed.
Not all celebrated. Opposition leader John Howard slammed the appointment as a cynical payoff for Mr Hayden's demise as Labor leader 5 years ago. The Hayden departure sparks a major reshuffle of the Hawke ministry. But Mr Howard has problems of his own, with the Coalition Immigration Committee delivering a major rebuff by substantially rewriting his immigration policy. Michael Heath in Canberra for Eyewitness News.
And that committee has rebuffed opposition leader John Howard's draft immigration policy. The committee met in Sydney tonight and substantially rewrote the policy, leaving no doubts it is for multiculturalism and against any form of racial discrimination.
The draft policy, already approved by Shadow Cabinet, was interpreted by National Party leaders to mean fewer Asian migrants. Mr Howard's theme of One Australia, allied with an attack on the word multiculturalism, has severely embarrassed the left of his party. At a 4-hour meeting in Sydney, they struck back. With no Nationals present, committee members redrafted the Howard policy clause by clause. Chairman Senator Baden Teague.
We've had a very successful and full discussion in which we are all agreed that it has been a very good meeting.
Mr Howard may choose to ignore the committee completely. He gives no hint of backing down.
I've stated a view. The policy that's been prepared reflects that view. I expect my view will be supported.
The immigration debate has now become an acid test for John Howard's leadership. Whatever happens in between times, a showdown is looming for next week's joint party meeting. Paul Bongiorno, Eyewitness News.
The New South Wales government has faced one of the biggest protests in years. Tens of thousands of people have marched on state parliament protesting against cuts to the education system. Traffic was blocked and a number of streets closed as the rally moved through Sydney. More than 300 police guarded the parliament and government members were booed and jeered during the opening ceremony. However, tonight, Education Minister Dr Terry Metherell remained unmoved, saying the protest would not stop the restructuring of the school system. Boxing identity Cess Waters has been granted $100,000 bail on a charge of conspiracy to murder. A judge of the Supreme Court in Sydney granted an application by Waters, despite claims by the Crown that his estranged wife would be in fear of her life.
Release for Cess Waters follows just 6 days in custody. It was last Thursday that Waters and son Dean were charged with having conspired to murder Alan Hall, the de facto husband of estranged wife Christine. Mr Hall died in late June on the property he shared with Mrs Waters. He'd been hit several times by shotgun blasts. In court today, bail for Waters was unsuccessfully opposed by the Crown, which claimed that if he were released, Mrs Waters would fear for her life. However, Mr Justice Grove said the Crown had presented no information about prosecution evidence against Waters. Granting his release, he said he couldn't conclude the Crown case was strong. The conditions of Waters' freedom are many, including daily reporting to Wyong Police and the requirement that he not travel within 5 kilometres of his estranged wife's home. Daryl Hutchison, Eyewitness News.
Holden is hoping to bounce back to the top of the market, unveiling a car for all the family to share. It's the long-awaited VN Commodore.
1948. Australians have their own car made exclusively for Australia.
And that's how she looks. The car whose appearance and general design had an element of secrecy for so long.
Now, 41 years later, the Holden dynasty has come to rest on this, the new Holden VN model Commodore. It's make or break for Holden trying to get back to #1. GMH have opted for a bigger car with a 3.8-litre fuel-injected V6 engine. Holden's Lang Lang test track was chosen to show off the new car to the media. The VN Commodore comes with all the clichés: soft lines, smooth surfaces and flush glass. From the outside, it's very similar to the recently released Ford range. But Holden say their vehicle is better. The new Commodore starts from $20,000 up to $31,000 for the top of the range.
And finally, the weather for tomorrow. In Brisbane, mainly fine and 26 degrees. Sydney, sunny periods and 23. Canberra, mainly fine and 16. Melbourne, showers and 17. And Hobart, showery and a top of 14 degrees. That's Eyewitness News. I'm Margaret Bates. Good night.